Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of awakentheworld.ca. My name is Garen and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite spiritual tomes, the Bhagavad Gita. Now, if you're unaware of the Bhagavad Gita is quite literally a love poem from the Creator to mankind. In my opinion, it is one of the most beautifully written works that humanity possesses. It can be found inside of a much larger epic, a literary masterpiece beyond measure called the Mahabharatha. And within this 6-inch volume of works which chronicles the spiritual, the entire journey of man in Sanskrit, in a language specifically designed to relay complex spiritual and philosophical ideas with brevity and clarity. Sanskrit is such a unique language, as a matter of fact, that because there is only, and the term has skipped my mind right now, but in Sanskrit, everything only has one meaning. So it actually makes a perfect language to be used in artificial intelligence. And it's been tested as such in the past and currently as well. So this is a beautiful and interesting piece of work. Now, I've spent some time translating various texts that were written out of the original Sanskrit, including a little bit of the Sanskrit originals. But there's a copy out there that I particularly love, and it's just written so well. And it's written by someone who I have immense respect for. He stayed with Sathya Sai Baba at his ashram a little before my time, but I stayed there as well. And he has an amazing journey, and his name is Jack Hawley. And the particular book title is The Bhagavad Gita, a walkthrough for Westerners. And this is a purchase that you will never regret. As a matter of fact, when I next find a beautiful red cloth for it, I plan to wrap this in a nice piece of red silk maybe. So I'm going to start by reading a little bit from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is Jack Hawley's translation. And his translation is quite honestly considered to be beautiful, poetic, and right on the money. So I'm, with no further ado, I'm going to begin. Now, I'm going to read first from chapter 2, sloka, or verse 10 to 13. And this is, chapter 2 is the path of knowledge. There has never been a time when I or you or any of these kings and soldiers here did not exist. And there will never be a time when we cease to exist. Physical bodies appear and disappear, but not the Atma, the soul, the life force that lives within them. This force dwells in a body for a while. While therein, it experiences infancy, childhood, youth, and old age, and then upon death, passes eventually to a new body. Changes such as death pertain to the body, not the Atma, the life force, the higher self. The wise person does not get caught up in the delusion that he or she is this body. This delusion is the very definition of ego. So, within the Mahabharatha is what's considered to be one of the oldest literary works of mankind, if not the oldest, and that is the Rig Vedas, and that is where the Bhagavad Gita is found. And it amazes me, it excites me. I've been in love with the fact that since the dawn of history, the messages have always been here for us, leading us back. Always. The Bhagavad Gita is a fantastic story. It is set on the battlefield of life where Krishna and Arjuna come riding up on a magnificent chariot. And Arjuna has no idea that his lifelong friend Krishna is actually an avatar, is God incarnate on earth. He's come for a visit, stops in every once in a while when things get a little dicey and tries to straighten people back up. You know, someone like Christ, for example, Buddha. And in the middle of this battlefield with the armies on both sides, populated by family members, his own kin fighting for him and his own kin fighting against him. And looking around and for the first time in his life, realizing the futility of what's about to happen. That there's no amount of glory that's worth what's actually going to occur. He throws down his bow and he slumps into the chariot. And he turns to his lifelong friend and he surrenders to him. He says, "You are my guru. Tell me what I'm supposed to do." And in the moment of that true surrender, of course, Krishna is instantly transformed, not on a physical level that's really obvious, but yet it is perfectly obvious that Krishna is now revealing himself as the teacher, capital T, the teacher. And this story is really an analogy of our life. We're on a battlefield, although I really do hesitate to use the word battlefield because that's not really the right way to look at it. Although given when this was written, battlefield was certainly correct and acceptable. We are not to fight ego, but we certainly see the fight going on within ourselves all the time. This is the battle. Now the beauty of it is it's a play. It's an act. It's an experience. It's almost like going on a vacation where everything is so real to you and highly dangerous and you know, a new thing happening at every twist and turn. You're pulled emotionally this way and that, and the action is intense and you think you're going to die, and then you find out after, as you pull your, you know, battered, bruised, cut and swollen corpse off the last beach that you got dropped on, that it was actually all planned. And you were safe and protected the entire time. And at that moment, you realize you've had the time of your life. That's the same thing this book is saying to you. That's the same thing that I'm saying to you, that Christ said to you, that Buddha said to you, that millions of other beings who've seen this and written and produced movies and songs, and we're going to talk about some of those things and some of the places these things appear that we're just not aware of. It's amazing. But back to the Gita. So moving on, I'm going to take another little section of the Gita here that was particularly beautiful. And this is regarding selfless action. And the Bhagavad Gita talks beautifully about selfless action. When one's actions are not based on desire for personal reward, one can more easily steady the mind and direct it to the higher self. For the person of steady mind, there is always one decision, but for the quivering mind, pulled in 1,000 directions, the decisions that plague it are endless, and they exhaust one's mental strength. Now this goes back to what I was talking to in one of my previous videos, what my wife had said. She said, well, I can't mentally keep up with you. And I said, well, that's what the problem is one, you shouldn't be trying to keep up, and two, I'm not doing it from a mental point of view. When you become aware, when you wake up, There only ever is one decision. You don't fight, you don't hem and haw. There's no hesitation, which comes from ego and overthinking and all these other practices that ego does. There's simply one decision and you naturally take action. That's the beauty of it. There are people ignorant of this principle who take delight in their own particular dogma, proclaiming there is nothing else. We call those people fundamental, Christians and the fundamental Muslims, the very conservative, it's my way or the highway types. If you don't believe this, you're going to hell. Their idea of heaven is their own enjoyment. The main reason they do their activities is to achieve the pleasures and power that heaven promises. Thus, even though their motive is common and positive, they are in truth filled with rather selfish desires of ego. With their minds thus taken up by their own selfish desires for everlasting pleasure and power, they are not able to develop the concentration needed to reach union with God, which is mankind's only real objective. The Bhagavad Gita is a beautiful text, and I would invite you to get a copy of it, preferably this one, because it is written, it is couched in our common language so well. Some of the verses, if you read some of the slokas that have been translated, especially if they've been translated over in India, what happens is language, English is maybe like their fourth language down the list. Very intelligent people doing this work, don't kid yourself. But their translations can appear rather dry and not be as poignant or speak as much to us. And this particular copy does very well. If there's anyone who would like any more information about the Bhagavad Gita and about the love poem to man that it represents, one thing to point out, I'll finish that thought. I mean, please don't hesitate to ask me questions, drop me a comment, whatever the case may be. Visit our website. There's a comment form there as well on awakentheworld.ca. The interesting thing about the Gita is, unlike a whole other string of religious texts, and I'm not going to keep bashing ones in particular, although the Bible, did I say that out loud? I guess I did, comes into it. There is no blood and gore in the Bhagavad Gita. There is not a God that demands any sacrifice at all. There isn't a God that demands blood. There isn't a God that demands we go out and destroy someone else in his name, or raise down march around the walls and blow the trumpets and use the ark to raise down whole cities. No Sodom and Gomorrah type stuff because God's not pleased with you. None of that. Just pure love. And an honest, compassionate desire to keep reminding mankind that it is only us who cause our own suffering. The Bhagavad Gita is a guide. It's a map book to the path, and it doesn't matter which path you choose, it talks about them all. The Gita covers all the paths on the way to the mountaintop. It talks about the path of the householder, and how, as difficult as that can be, it can also be one of the most rewarding paths. It talks about the path of the renunciant, of the internally meditative, introspective person, of the outward action orientated. It's all here, and it's done with such love and such clarity and such joy at the marvelousness of creation. I was trying to explain it to my wife, and I said, here's the thing. The law of attraction in the universe is drawing beings here left, right, and center, because the two, and I'm going to use the word opposing, but they're not opposing, okay? But it's a simple way to get it through to people. Consciousness and unconsciousness. opportunity for evolution, opportunity to fall back a little bit, are rising on our planet. And that's acting as a giant magnet and sucking more beings here. We have populations like never before on this planet. We're being surrounded by beings who there's not enough space to put them here, so they're sitting up above and keeping an eye out to see what's going to happen. The whole universe watches whenever a civilization reaches this point. And as I tried to explain to my wife, and the words are so woefully incomplete that they can't even begin to picture it, I said to her, imagine the entirety of everything is one giant crystalline diamond. But instead of being solid, it is filled with an infinite number of crystalline lattices. And they're all moving and turning and evolving and in this dance that simply can't be described. And the tiniest flare of consciousness in one corner of the universe, this blows me away, is a dim candle on the other side. It has an effect. The whole universe is watching us right now. We have an opportunity. If we as a species can raise our consciousness to a new level, it'll be like fireworks going off in that matrix. It's beautiful. As I said to my wife, I've experienced it. I've viewed it. I've seen it in the Satori moments, and it simply defies words. But this book goes a long way to speaking to exactly this. And again, I apologize. I got to get used to not talking about things that I've experienced beyond the thought realm, because all it does is start this vibration up inside of you. And this vibration, your mind simply cannot contain it. It leaks out all over the place. And if you don't stop thinking and just allow it to flow, it overpowers you, like your head's going to pop off the top of your head. Like literally, like you're going to blow. It's, sneezing with your nose and ears shut. Not a good idea. So, thanks for listening. This has been a great little piece on the Bhagavad Gita, and I sincerely hope you pick up this book and give it a read. It's actually a wonderful, relevant piece today, even though there's 10,000 years between this book and us right now. It's perfectly relevant for today. Again, this is Garen on awakentheworld.ca. Have a wonderful day.